Some folks have told me that they're not going to be around because of the holidays. So most people are out.
I figured that might happen.
But some of us don't have that luxury, so it's fine. uh, it's all good. How y'all doing, class? Y'all here's fine and good. Everyone's happy today.
It was only like 89 degrees today, so yes.
89 is not bad. Come on, y'all be all right. It's in the 90s, 100, then I would start complaining.
It's the
Oh no,
humidity.
it's good. It's good that it's not 95.
It's yeah, mowing the lawn in 90 plus degrees, and oh gosh, that's what I did. So I mean, this is fine. I'll take it. I'll take this.
For sure.
Yeah, Kayla said, not bad. My ice cream melted. So you got to eat faster, my friend. That's about it. All right, so let's continue our conversation today with Corey. So today we're going to be talking about tokenization. So that's one topic that's near and dear to us, Corey. Right?
Yep.
Been through it. So I'm going to let you just roll with it, Corey. It's all you today. And I'll ask you some questions and just chime
Uh,
in as needed. And feel free,
oh,
class, feel free to ask questions as raise your hands or if you want to just jump in and ask questions. Corey,
so let's
it's
start
all
off with what tokenization is and isn't. Start off by saying that tokenization is not truncation. A lot of times, if you get deeper into the fintech industry, you'll hear about, for instance, truncating cardholders' personal identifiable information. In other words, putting different characters in place of whatever the actual characters are. So Corey would, instead of being Corey when electronically transmitted, it would be C asterisk 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 asterisk, etc. Truncation was important in the card present world, specifically for credit card numbers when originally they would be printed out um, on receipts and such. And people would store those receipts, but if they were robbed, then you would have all the credit card numbers. So just mentioning off the bat, because tokenization, what actually it is a very simple way of doing encryption, of substituting items or card numbers. If you get into blockchains are really just tokenization in a form. You take information that you don't want to send and you replace it with whatever electronically you are going to send. It gets to the other end, and whether through decryption or just knowing, okay, what the token is, it gets processed. So tokenization is really important in the fact that you're not sending information that is operation critical in the wild. You're not going ahead and putting out specifically credit card numbers, but we'll return back to blockchains. You're sending information in a fashion that cannot go ahead and be stolen. So that's just a very basic on what tokenization is. Um, it's very funny because tokenization really wasn't mentioned quite a lot up until I would say the early 2000s. The reason why was because everything was done in person. So you would have some type of card instrument in order to go ahead and process a transaction. Uh, would be the credit card number. Then they started looking into, okay, let's encode, like we talked about before, certain values into the magnetic stripe or the 3-digit code on the back of the card if you wanted to do stuff over the phone, or back in those days via catalog. Then okay, you could go ahead and gather that information via mail or telephone, moto, telephone order. So mail order, telephone order. um, so tokenization really wasn't a big deal until the early 2000s when the internet started to take off. That's when tokenization first started to come up as a topic. And of course, the reason why is because when you do e-commerce, back in the day, if you wanted to go ahead and steal credit card numbers from an electronic transaction where you're going to have to do some type of wiretapping or you're going to have to do some like skimming of credit card numbers. Even in the early days of internet, if you were talking really about man in the middle, you're literally talking about some interrupting a dial-up connection of some type. But once e-commerce really took off in the broadband era, that's when you started to see, okay, now suddenly man in the middle attack could be as simple as someone stealing someone's internet connection or tapping their internet connection, getting their logins for different websites, and then next thing you know, if they've stored their credit card information on those websites, it's easy just to take the credit card information. Or you could have someone actually just steal all the IP traffic for a website and then go ahead and suddenly you have all the card numbers that they've been transmitting and receiving. So tokenization really became important then because credit card companies, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, all of them said, hey, we can't just simply send our card numbers into clear and have them available to be stolen. There has to be a way where we can go ahead and send card numbers that we know are tokens that if someone steals it, then we can just cancel that card number, but we don't have to cancel the underlying account. So that's when you saw tokens really start to take off. That was the first application of them was for online usage. Any comments there, Nick?
So, Corey, I know maybe I should ask some questions so help with the
Yeah.
students. Who who's the one who initiated the tokenization? Which network was the first one to implement that?
Not going to lie, like I actually know, but I do know it was the biggest push is really under the EMV group of networks. So Visa with their Visa token service,
Mm-hmm.
MasterCard
Yes.
has their MasterCard Digital Enablement Service, MDES.
Mhm.
Also, Discover and American Express have their own tokenization, but it's much
Mhm.
less used. The main big ones are, of course, Visa and MasterCard.
God, I remember going to the network, the conference in St. Charles, right? Back in the day. So I know MasterCard, I think, kind of pushed it first. And I
Right.
think Visa followed suit, right?
It's
Because,
their services now are really analogous, but in the particular MasterCard in the past was really a trailblazer, especially
Mhm.
with tokenization and authentication.
Okay.
Secure Code, if you remember back in the day,
Yeah, I remember
that
that.
yeah, their branded product. Um, Now Visa Token Services, of course, the largest one. We'll get in
Yeah.
a way that they utilize the network. One thing I did
So,
want
go
oh,
ahead.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
I
No,
was
no, you
gonna,
said one thing.
well, actually, go ahead with your question. I'll bring up when we go back.
So, can you give us step-by-step details on how token works, for example, with Starbucks, right?
Yes. So this is where I want to really go ahead and speak on something that I would say is important for the class today. And that's really to think about when you have a network, whether it's like we're talking about right now, credit card networks or telephony networks, or if you're talking about anything really in fintech can be constituted some type of network, API calls, etc. Always think about the versatility of the network because tokenization, when they brought this up, they were like, okay, not just that the tokens have to be transmitted, but also a token isn't always going to be just a static token. Sometimes you have to request the token to be built. If you're a merchant and you get a new card holder, for instance, let's say, let's go ahead and use Netflix. So I go ahead and want to subscribe to Netflix. I put in my card number on the Netflix site, and they want to store your information for further subscription purchases. Well, what they can do is, if with a token service provider on their end, they can get your card number, provide that in real time to the token service provider. That token service provider actually sends a transaction message over the regular VisaNet network. So a network that's normally used for credit card transactions can also be used for a token provisioning call. Of course, you can also do it via API separately if you don't want to use the network. But interestingly, when it first started, that's how token provisioning was done. It was done via a transaction message over the Visa network.
Okay.
You would get a reply back in that token provisioning message with the actual tokenized card number. Netflix can store that number on their servers. And if for some reason that account is compromised, it's not your card number that's being stolen, it's that token that's being stolen.
Okay.
That way
So
you don't
let's.
have to cancel your account. And on top of it, you would actually go ahead and you would get a new token. Netflix would be able to get a new token.
Okay. So Corey, sorry to chime in. Let's talk before token, right?
Mhm.
Let's talk the scenario. For example, if you are caught in a fraud, right, folks, what happens to your credit card? You might have it tied to Target, it tied to your bank, it tied to your, Netflix payments and everything else. So remember, when you get before token, if your card is compromised, you would have to cancel the card, and everything associated to that have to be notified. Correct, class? Okay, that's before token. So with token, I'll let Corey talk about that, right? So even if you get compromised on the side of Netflix, all they do is what, Corey? They just issue you another token, right? You don't have to
Right.
cancel the card. Go ahead.
Yes. Many of these websites subscribe to services where it's called an account updater service. So if a token somehow is compromised, then they would get via the account updater service new tokens to replace the previous one. And that way they'd be able to go ahead and continue processing without you having to notify them, hey, my card's been compromised or I had to change my card number. So while you still a lot of times have to go through all the different websites to change card numbers, in many cases also, for instance, Google Pay or Apple Pay, if you've added a card to those apps, it actually goes ahead and uses the account updater service rather than having to go ahead and enter a whole new card number to just update the actual Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or Google Pay.
Yeah. Amelia, you had a question. You raised your hands.
Yeah, I think we kind of got to it, but I was gonna say I missed the part at the very beginning when you said what a token was, Corey. I don't know if you go back and give me that. And I didn't
Sure.
know if you could I don't know, I like to say break it down like maybe I'm five or something because I don't know very much about this industry. And I'm trying to
Oh,
wrap my brain around it.
no problem. And explain it like I'm five is like one of my favorite subreddits. So,
Okay.
um, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not on camera tonight, but I'm literally looking at a very simple, like, tell me what tokenization is definition. Tokenization is the process of replacing sensitive payment data with a unique non-sensitive equivalent. So really think of it as a decoder ring situation. On one end, you have information. On the other end, you have someone who wants to receive information, and you just simply don't want to go ahead and into clear send data like a card number, for instance, or even personal information can be tokenized. So instead of sending, for instance, social security numbers into clear, you might have an algorithm where you say, okay, we enter it into the algorithm on one end, it's sent over a network. When it's received on the other end, the algorithm goes ahead and decrypts it. So during the process of sending it, whatever you decide on, that is a token. So that's what tokenization is. It's just simply something that's used to go ahead and send sensitive data where the token, if it's captured during that transmission, no one understands what that token is. It can be stolen, but it doesn't matter because it can't be used. Does
So
that make
Corey,
sense?
Yeah, I was thinking of it as, yeah, just like basically some kind of cloak over your personal information, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay.
so it's what 20 alphanumeric characters, isn't it? Corey? It could be ABCD 1 2 3 4 EFG.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it
You
doesn't
can,
have to be 16. Yeah.
and even with a credit card number, we're going to go back to credit card numbers because that's the most commonly tokenized item in the fintech industry. But a credit card number isn't necessarily completely tokenized when it's sent. Um, the first six numbers might be a range of different bank identification numbers that are used specifically just for tokens. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 is bank A, and you'll always see that token range coming through. But everything after that is something that can be reused every couple days or at a certain time period, or you might assign five random numbers in that range to a specific account. And all those card numbers in that bank identification number, so 16 card numbers, but the first six identifies the bank, are tokens. So tokens can be static. In other words, you assign them ahead of time. They might be in a range of numbers that you say, okay, at any point, every 24 hours, we'll redistribute, but you can use all these numbers as a token and we'll do it ad hoc. We'll provision it when a request comes through. But tokenization really is, when we use common usage, about credit card numbers and making sure that we don't have to send the original card number. We can send something in place of that and make sure that it doesn't get stolen.
So you could have multiple tokens associated with one card. Okay. So know that. So it could be
Right.
many to one. Okay. So
And
each vendor or merchant could have a random number assigned to it.
right. And when originally tokens came out for e-commerce, it was very basic. It was just simply, okay, replace the card number. That's it. And you would have a token provision message before the transaction. You would get a random card number, send it through. Of course, on Visa would do, or the network would do the decryption for you. That way, when the issuer receives it, they would know, okay, this is my card holder. This, I know which card number it is. But on the merchant's end, the merchant doesn't have to send the actual account number. They can go ahead and get a token that they can use. As things got more complicated, they actually started doing device tokens. So your account might have a token specifically for your Google Chrome web browser, your Firefox web browser, your telephone, Google Pay, or your Apple Pay. Each of those would have a separate token, but they would all link back to the correct card number. You smile. Have a comment, Nick? Oh, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. No, the wife was walking out. So sorry.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. She
But
said
yes.
something. So sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, so tokens really originally were just, okay, you have one card number, you don't want to send that. Here's a token for that card number. But as devices started to become more in use, also omni-channel. So that's
Mhm.
using your not only using your tokens online, but using them when you use your phone, for instance. Your phone doesn't store your actual credit card information; it stores a token. That way, if your phone is somehow stolen or somehow people get usage of your phone, not your actual card information is going to be lost. It's a token. So that's device tokens. Soon for Visa, they started doing tokens for both phones, browsers, wearables, so watches. The favorite one was every time for about a decade straight. When you went to a MasterCard conference, they would show how a refrigerator could store tokens. And if you wanted to go ahead and make an order from your refrigerator for groceries, then great, it's storing a token. That way, it's not storing card information, but you can make transactions on it. So, tokenization really opens up how these device manufacturers and such can go ahead and also process transactions.
I know there's a question coming in now. Let's see. Taji, you had a question? Oh, say, Amelia, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is like for you, Dr. Nick.
Mhm.
With this information about tokens, does that like make you want to get a credit card?
Not really.
Really?
Dr.
Guys,
Dr. Nick doesn't get a credit card not because of the security. He gets
yeah.
it because of being financially very literate and very smart with how he spends his money.
Okay. Oh, okay. This
Amelia,
whole time
I'm established, so in a point that
you don't
we
need it.
we paid the house off a long time ago. We had got another house we paid off. I mean, my car is cash, so I lease my vehicle, another vehicle I have. So we buy pretty much anything cash. I think it's
Wow.
more of a monetary decision rather than credit cards, right? But I've seen the evil of credit cards, right? And I've been blessed that I worked in the industry because you guys were paying me and Corey, right? Um, as much as you used to charge in the percentage. I just was not happy with that, right? Yes, I was working in it, but then it's a financial decision, I think, also.
I think
But
Oh,
that's a
okay.
I think that's
yeah,
good though, because it goes back also to what I was talking about the versatility of your network. Because when we're
mhm,
talking about credit card numbers, we kind of just throw that term out there like credit card number. But in the
mhm,
industry, it's actually called a PAN,
yeah,
primary account
yeah,
number.
yeah,
And that can be for credit cards, it can be for debit cards, it can be for what's called push payments. So
mhm,
Visa and MasterCard, both of them, they have what they call their faster payments. And even though it might not be going to an actual credit card, it might be for a bank account, it still uses credit card numbers when transmitting over the Visa network or the MasterCard dual message or single message networks.
mhm.
So, the one thing you learn in fintech, my specialty is payment processing via these networks, via these credit networks and debit networks. Debit networks use the same thing, but
Mhm.
the versatility of their networks, they've used them over. These networks were started in some cases in the late 60s and the early
Yeah.
70s for MasterCard, for Interbank. And when you look at the specifications for these networks, this is still transmitting over networks that originally were transmitting in assembly over dial-up modems, and the
Hmm.
only thing they were used for was credit card transactions.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about debit cards, about ACH payments, about tokenization, chargebacks. So actually sending not just okay a dispute message, but all the actual text that's transmitted with that.
Hmm.
And at one point, they were even sending the images for those disputes over the same card network.
Hmm.
So tokenization kind of goes back to the versatility of whatever network you're working with. And it's
So,
not just about tokenizing card numbers, but
mhm.
sending data over that network and utilizing it in that manner.
So Taji had a question, Corey.
Mhm.
So does a token number change every time you pay, or is it a set number assigned to each device? Assigned for each device?
It depends actually on the case and usage. For instance, with Google Pay or with Apple Pay, it usually is that the token changes every single time that the transaction occurs.
Mhm.
And cases, like I said, with merchants who are storing information on their system, but they use the token system to provision, they might
Mhm.
have a set token in their system for uh, at maximum like 6 months, and then they might have to re-provision. But that's a more of a static token.
Mhm.
So the rule of thumb is usually for like omni-channel purposes. In other words, you're using your phone or a wearable. The token is going to go ahead and be dynamic, whereas e-commerce solutions and merchant who store data or even token service providers, it's going to be more of a static token that might be linked to a specific web browser or specific online account.
Okay. Corey, I want to ask a question. So we have 16 digits now for PAN, correct?
Correct.
And so
Go ahead.
what happens when the numbers we max out? So what's the next step? I know before I left, they were talking about extending, right? 16
Well,
characters to 20. So,
I I'm laughing because I did not get the exact calculation on running out of card numbers depending on the way that you set them up. But
mhm,
we were getting to a point where because of token ranges, we were using up all the different combinations we had available.
mhm,
But that 16-digit pan, believe it or not, it has so many different combinations. It wasn't just a matter of, oh, that was too little. No, that 16-digit number is broken up, like I said earlier, into very specific data that's sent through. And some of that
yeah,
has to be static. So, for
mhm,
instance, bank identification number, BIN, that's the first 6 digits of every card number. It doesn't matter if it's Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American
yeah,
Express, debit networks. They all have these bank identification numbers in their card numbers,
yes,
and it's ISO International Standard Organization. It's an ISO standard, so it's agreed upon throughout the world that okay, Visa, for instance, their bank identification numbers all start with a four.
yeah,
MasterCard, their bank identification numbers all start with five. Discover is six. American Express is
mhm,
three. American Express uses a different number of card PAN length. So they use a 15 digit, I believe.
mhm, yeah,
Um, but nonetheless, they still have 6 digit bins. So these bank
mhm,
identification numbers, those are what started to run out because of so many different financial institutions that were going ahead and signing up for 6 digit bank identification numbers.
mhm,
What was decided was that the bank identification number range would be extended to 8 instead of just 6.
mhm,
So 8 digit bank identification numbers, there was a lot more bank identification numbers that were available. You still had, of course, like Visa starting with 4, MasterCard having both 5 and some bank identification numbers under 2, etc. But there's a lot more versatility now with an 8 digit bin range. And then after that, the remaining numbers, whether it's 16 digit PAN, 19 digit, because debit cards sometimes use 19 digits, whatever the length, because the bank identification number range was extended. Now, if you have a lot more versatility in what numbers can be arranged.
mhm. So, Corey, can you tell the class about the debit rail and credit rail and what's useful? And give
Sure.
a scenario, especially when we go to Publix.
So the the way that you would really look at it is age. The oldest networks are credit card networks.
Mhm,
Um, whether it's Visa, MasterCard, American Express. Later on, Discover came in, but it was after those first three major ones. Also, diners. They
Yep, Dennis.
utilized. they utilized credit card networks that originally were what's called single message. So the transaction, when it was sent, that was it. It's just one message, and okay, I'm doing a sale. Here's the exact amount. That's all I'm telling you is a sale. We're done. Doesn't leave room for any type of adjustments.
Mhm.
If you have to cancel a sale, then it's literally okay. Now we have to do a return. We have to do a credit in order to go ahead and credit the sale. So great for very simple businesses. If I'm just a regular grocery store or anything, I know the transaction amount. I know what it is at the final, like right there at the point of sale. Here we go. Single message network. Most of your debit card later on are single message networks. Then more restaurants started using credit cards, more travel and entertainment. Of course, American Express there. So they have dual message networks. That's where you can send an original authorization. Hey, I want to go ahead and, for instance, do a deposit or when you open a tab for $50, but at a bar. So I open a tab for $50 authorization. Then I do a clearing transaction. Okay, close that tab for $30. I didn't use $20 of that authorization, but the amount changed. Or if I'm at a restaurant, I left a $5 tip in addition to my original authorization. Gas stations. Okay, you're authorized for $100, but you only pump $75. So dual message allows for that transaction either to be voided or adjusted both up and down. A lot more versatility in a dual message network. You can also do batch processing where you send through a lot of these completions at the end of the day. So those networks became more and more popular because of the versatility that they have. Debit card networks, on the other hand, stayed with single message because a debit card transaction is more secure. You usually do it with a PIN. So whether it's at an ATM or whether it's at a gas station, but you enter your PIN, that security makes up by spades for the inconvenience of not being able to change the transaction amount at any point.
Yeah.
In addition, it's a speedier network because you don't have batch processing. So everything's done instantly. There's more transaction messages, but at the same time, payment can be done quicker to the merchant. They can even do cycles throughout the day. ATMs process way more cycles and runs, they call them. So they use that single message network. The biggest thing when you take it back to tokenization is that in the end, tokenization was a lot easier to implement on those dual message networks because those dual message networks utilize a lot more capacity, a lot more throughput. If you look at transactions per second of Visa compared to any blockchain, it's ridiculous how many transactions Visa can do. And so even Visa is pretty robust even compared to a debit network. And that's the reason why they built their tokenization directly onto their network at first before they even did API, is because you could do messages through the network, say, hey, here's the card number, but we need a token back. And you could do that right alongside just normal transactions. So while single message did do tokenization, it really became more utilized on that dual message network. A lot of information. Apologize for if there's any confusion, but that kind of goes to the differences in the networks.
Well, Corey, I remember we used to have the competition during Black Friday. How many, whoever comes closest to the transaction, PPS, remember?
Right. And
Yeah.
during that whole Christmas period, you would
Yes.
see like while Black Friday is a big day, like to people and to retailers and such, you would actually see more of a ramp up in transactions throughout the whole holiday period, right up until that Christmas Day period. And then even after that, there's still a few more days of really huge like transaction processing.
So,
So
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Plus, we used to put in money in the pot, right? $10 for the IT folks, and whoever hit the closest to the transaction processing per second, right, wins the pot. So I think the closest we came was 1600 TPS per second, right?
Yeah.
1600 transactions per second on a Black Friday. So imagine
It,
how much transactions were going through at that time. It is crazy, you know.
Visa definitely was doing something ridiculous, like 44,000 or 50,000.
Jeez. And this is worth
So
it. So we are
so
not even the
it's
biggest. Yeah, we were what, top 10, I think, maybe seven, I think, at that time. But
right.
imagine the big dogs, right? How many transactions that go at that time. So it's amazing. But
So
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, so really tying it into like fintech today, what the importance of tokenization, I've talked about a lot in credit card usage. So using it for credit card data. And really that's the like, when you talk about tokenization, that's really the biggest use is in payments. But that's what I found really exciting about cryptocurrency or
Mhm,
blockchain, I think is a better way to say it because it's not about the currency aspect of it. It's about the blockchain.
mhm,
Being this is something that both Visa and MasterCard have really kind of latched on to and to use it in aspects of tokenization, really on their in order to go ahead and build kind of like a side network of transmitting data. So it's kind of a good thing with the way that regulation is going at a national level. It's kind of opening up over the next couple of years. This was something that was really looked upon previously in a more conservative light, but it's going to be a little bit more open for ideas of using tokenization um, and instead of just card numbers, using blockchains in order to go ahead and do tokenization. So that's more really like what we're looking at in the future.
So Corey, when coming to stable coins now, right? We have what that Amazon and who else was who else I was reading? Walmart are going to be going to stable coins, right? They'll be issuing their own coins or currency. So how
Right.
does that work with the tokenization and stable coins?
Well, the coins are really it's they're pegged to the dollar or pegged to a fiat currency.
Hmm.
So they're really talking more along the lines of okay, this is your stable coin and this is instead of transmitting like cash or anything you can have a separate account and use the stable
Hmm.
coin to transmit to Amazon or Walmart. So in the past they had um, I think this is the best way to go ahead and give you the reason why they would go through the headache of making something like this with credit cards, whether it's in the clear or whether it's with tokens, Amazon and Walmart get charged by whatever network they utilize in order to go
Yes.
ahead and transmit the transaction. It's called interchange. You have credit card interchange, you have debit card interchange. It's to go ahead and operate the network. Now, a lot of people think that Visa, MasterCard, the credit card networks, they profit over it on interchange. Actually, they don't. It's literally just to run the network. However, they do make a profit on tokenization.
Hmm.
the Visa token service or MasterCard, MDES, or the ones for Discover, etc., Amex, they make a profit on both the token provisioning as well as any type of usage of the token from the bank. So a cryptocurrency or a stablecoin benefits Amazon or Walmart if they are the operator of it because it's all over their own network and they don't have to use the credit card networks or their card numbers to transmit transaction data. Instead, they could just go ahead and use a blockchain that they own. So that's the advantage of them looking. That's the reason why they're looking so strongly at blockchains, at things like stablecoin, because not necessarily because, oh, they want to make it very difficult or they want to go ahead and get away from these fiat currencies. They really don't care about that. It's about making transaction processing cheaper.
So, Corey, Amelia's question, she said, did you just say that Visa, for example, does not make money from interchange?
No. They're not supposed to make any money from interchange. What happens is that the banks on their side, they go ahead and they use interchange in order to, for instance, do benefits on cards, to go ahead and travel benefits or cash back with Discover and stuff like that. That's how the banks use interchange. Or on an ATM network, then interchange might be beneficial for the ATM operator for running the actual ATM.
So, Dr. Nick, is that something different from what Sal told us last week?
That's a bit different, but you got to understand there's so many variables in play here. You got assessment fees, you got discount rate, you got interchange. I mean, it just goes on and on. So,
right. There's different things in billing, which a lot of times when you're selling a credit card account, like a merchant service account, you might say, okay, interchange and fees, and this is this. But from the credit card network itself, interchange specifically is for actual operation of the network. The credit card networks, a matter of fact, this is the reason why they got, why not but why they're currently in lawsuits and such in places like the European Union, because interchange for them is not necessarily supposed to be for profit. It's supposed to be strictly for, like I said, benefits to card holders or maintenance of the credit card network. So that's the reason why, yes, they're not supposed to have it as a revenue, as an income source, or as a profit source.
So, Amelia, if you look at it in class, if you look at it, there's so many players in this game, correct? You got your middleman, the processors, okay? Then you got the issuing bank, you got the networks. So everybody wants to take a piece of the pie. And then on top of that, if you're a high-risk merchant, then you got ISOs and MSPs, independent guys, right? They take on these accounts, and then they go through guys like WorldPay and FIS, right? Because FIS and WorldPay sometimes don't want to assume the liability, so they hand it over to a smaller mom and pop, which these people, I mean, they rip you off, so, right? Because of who you are and what type of business you are. So they don't want to assume the risk. So if you look at it, right? For example, I give you an easy scenario. If you go buy your shoes in China, right, your own Nike, it's probably going to cost you less than $10, okay? Or even a jersey. By the time it gets here, it's $250. Why? Because everybody wants to take a piece of the pie. So that's what happens in this game, right? It is a game. So
Yep, and
there you go.
that's the reason why, if you look online, for instance, and you get the publicly available interchange, from like Visa or MasterCard, that's a base rate that they go ahead and publish. That's their interchange rate. They do not add on. They say this is the legal interchange rate. And basically everybody else might add on. For instance, if you process through Square, then they have their, like they set it just at 3.5. interchange.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter what you're doing. Well, you might do a restaurant transaction card present, and Visa's published rate is only like, just giving a hypothetical, but it's only 2%. But Square is charging 3.5% interchange. Well, they're making cost plus on it. They're making the additional interchange. So that's the thing about interchange rates from the network perspective. The network itself doesn't profit from interchange. They do not, they just transmit it. That's it.
So another example, I'm just going to chime in real quick. So
No, go ahead.
each industry has got a different rate, right? You got the gambling, online gambling, right? Price, all the guys that you have, Price Picks, whoever gambles online, you guys know. So they're in a different category. They charge them higher, right? But because of the risk, assume. So
Yep.
restaurants have got a different rates. I mean, everybody, this is what they call it a sicko. Um,
Even
and
charities actually, especially register ones like Red Cross, don't have
mhm,
a rate at all. They get a zero rate.
mhm.
And so from the network, at least, networks don't even charge them interchange. And that would only be like if they have a processing service that charged them for that. So
Mhm.
yeah, interchange is something that networks don't profit on really. Um,
So go ahead, Corey. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
So there's a question from Jonathan here. How would you obtain a stable coin from Walmart? Would you deposit into it like what you do Starbucks gift card or Apple Cash?
That's
So
only, I wouldn't even say like that's their implementation. Don't know how they're going to do that. They might work with a already stable coin that's already out there and start to say, okay, we'll tie it in that way. They might
yeah,
launch their own blockchain and say, okay, it's pegged to the US dollar 1 to 1.
yeah.
So, right,
So they can probably hit the bank account, right? Just like you would do trade with Robinhood. You
right.
deposit in there, and then of course it will be flipped over to USDC, US digital currency, and they manage that. Then there's no up fees for them, nothing. Straight to your account, straight up, straight to their account. Very similar. Just like
They
we talked about
go,
yeah, just like we talk about Starbucks, guys. Every time I move money over $25 or $50 is automatically gone in there, right? So whenever I make a transaction, it automatically comes out. So again, nobody takes any piece of the pie. Everything is straight to Starbucks, and it's the same thing would apply to your Walmart or even your Amazon or something like that,
and
right?
what it does is it removes the identification part of it, or if like having to have
Mhm.
a specific card number linked to an actual person. Instead, you can have
Exactly.
currency in a wallet and move the
Mhm.
currency
So
to
this
just the
is
different wallets.
this is still in infancy. I'm sure they're working out the details. So once we get more details, I'll let y'all know, right? I'm sure it's going to be interesting to find out, right, how this is all going to pan out. And I can see other companies doing the same thing, right? But
Right.
again, there's nothing to stop Visa and Mastercard issuing their own USDC, right? I mean, think about it. They're the biggest players. Why would they not want to get a piece of the pie?
This
I mean,
actually goes to their strategy of
exactly.
really wanting to get rid of card numbers like I've been talking about them,
Mhm.
of linking to an actual bank account. Card numbers in their basic form on their networks have always linked somehow to some type of bank account, whether it's a checking account or a temporary prepaid account of some type or savings line of credit. It always attached to a bank account. So when you talk about cryptocurrency, stable coins, blockchains, instead of linking to a credit card account, there would be no card numbers. It would just be
Mhm.
transmitting actual currency transactions, actual financial transactions.
So, okay, so now we have access to make purchases, right? If you carry American Express Black Card, you have unlimited amount, right? You can go buy a Lamborghini right now. But think about somebody trying to buy a stablecoin, right? Do you have access to that amount of credit? Not everybody's got $1 million in their account or access to it. Some people live on credit now. So how is that going to work, Corey? I'm just throwing
Well,
it out there.
we're once again, a stable coin is about transmitting a currency, actually.
Mhm.
So the biggest thing about Visa, MasterCard is transaction per second. And the
Yes.
reason why cryptocurrencies, for the most part, haven't worked is because their transactions per second is much lower on a blockchain. Well, instead of worrying about that, if you're just doing stablecoin, then you can go ahead and have much lower network throughput if it's going through, for instance, Amazon doing it on their own network or Walmart doing it on their own network.
So
And
got
on
so
and you're not worried about if it's going to a line of credit or if it's going to a, debit account, etc. So it's
so
less
you
about the authorization of the
gotcha.
it's right.
So are they going to still have their own credit cards, just like what we have now? Is that how it's
I
going to work?
I think that, yeah, you'll have a mixture of credit cards, but really, when you look at their implementations, that's the reason I was saying Walmart, for instance, that's going to be their own implementation.
So are they going to start
Linking,
issuing their own cards then with
they're
credit
going to
limit?
have, it's going to not even going to be about cards. Cards is like, think about it in an old way. You just have
Okay.
your Walmart account as a seller. You can have your regular Walmart Plus account or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, okay, whatever bank you have, okay, I'll fund the account, and it's done in the background. Okay, your account, you fund it with your credit card, your debit card, which way you want to do it. If you go in store, pay cash, and your
Mm-hmm.
Walmart account will have this amount of money on it. And then if you go ahead and use their app in store, or if you go ahead and make a purchase online, whatever's in your wallet on your account will be transmitted using the actual currency to their Walmart supplier or to them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're able to go ahead and complete the transaction on the other end.
So what about
So,
high purchase dollars then? I mean, if you're trying to purchase high items, for example, not everybody has money, right? Right now,
yep.
you charge and you pay it monthly with an interest rate. How do you handle situations like that, right? If a TV is $3,000, how are you going to manage that way?
Well,
I mean,
because at that point, if the amount's in the Walmart account, then it's still just transmitting, like, whether it's like a low dollar amount. So, hey, I just went into the grocery store and made a purchase and it was pulled from the Walmart wallet. Or, hey, let me go ahead and make a much larger purchase. It's still pulling from that wallet. So
yeah,
think,
the
for
wallet doesn't
instance,
have money, right? For
think about
example,
Alipay is the best
Mhm,
way to put it. This is why things like Alipay and WePay became so big,
mhm,
is because although they were still using kind of networks that are more like our original credit card networks,
mhm.
they were doing these transactions from a wallet that was more secure. So they were actually able to go ahead and do both low dollar value transactions and high dollar value
Got it.
transactions in a secure manner.
But in this,
Amazon and Walmart, at first, they've
mhm,
been looking at it from a manner of trying to replicate a Alipay or a WePay. But
gotcha.
now they're also seeing, okay, we can transmit secure data and have our own network if we do it via stablecoin.
Mhm. So I also see they can probably start issue credit limits too, right? Increase the credit limit in a sense, right? Float it
If
around.
they
I don't
do
know.
their own KYC, their own know your customer and such, yeah,
Hmm.
there's a risk to it.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
if you take risk of fraud more so when you do any type of tokenization out of the picture.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
that's one thing, a large thing that they worry about when they think about, okay, how can we do more what I would call honest transactions, ones that
Hmm.
aren't over the Visa, MasterCard, or debit networks. If they try to transmit themselves, they have to do it in a
Hmm.
secure manner. And now stable coins is a solution they can look at.
To me, Corey, I think it will work well on lower items with this option, right? But when
Yeah,
it comes to large
actually,
amount, large
When
purchases, I don't think people can afford it. That could hurt the merchant itself, right? Because right
not
now you can go
necessarily
charge it, right? No, what about
what,
charging it though? So think
but
about
the
that.
low dollar ones is actually the ones that they're looking at the most
Hmm.
because making your money on a high dollar transaction for processing is easy. You're still only
Hmm.
paying, like, maybe you say, okay, I could have it just 1% or 50 basis points and that's it. You look at debit card transactions, that's the big thing, is that debit card transactions is 5 cents and 21 basis points or something, or the other way around, but something ridiculously low.
Hmm.
Well, however, on those low dollar transactions, the low dollar transactions is where you have a hard time making any type of or keeping transaction processing low. So if you're going ahead and transmitting a whole bunch of transactions $5 and under, for instance,
Hmm.
vending machine companies traditionally, they hated credit card processing because it's so, if you're transmitting transactions, every single one of those gets hit with a low interchange fee in addition to all the other stuff. Well, with a stable coin, that makes those transactions even cheaper because then you're cutting out the network.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for Walmart's, for Amazon's, is they want to cut out paying directly to Visa,
Hmm.
MasterCard. A lot of your lawsuits about interchange, while they say it's to help small business and such, if you look at who actually originated the lawsuit, it's usually very large companies like
Yeah.
Walmart, Amazon,
Hmm.
petroleum companies back in the 70s and the 80s when they went to dual pricing. It's
Hmm.
not small business that hates transaction processing fees. So it's the same thing here.
Yeah.
Tokenization is the original blockchain, I would call it. It's the way to go ahead and send stuff and make sure it's, masked somehow. You're not sending just
Yes.
your data in the wild. But now that
Hmm.
blockchains are becoming more popular,
Hmm.
tokenization is really a simple method and it doesn't transmit data. It just simply makes it unable to be read. I was going to try to say
So
obfuscate, but
class, blockchain is a building block for your cryptocurrencies, your stable coins, right? Central bank digital currency. That's what drives it. So if you guys can do some research on that, that'll help you. You know? All right, open up for questions. Caleb, you're quiet today, man.
Um, this is Tajay. I have a
Hey, Sanjay.
question about the stable coins. So if Starbucks, for example, have their stable coin and then Walmart have their stable coin, so how would I be able to use, so if I have some money in Starbucks and I have some money in Walmart, can they exchange the amounts between them? Like,
most I would
yeah.
say that's you're gonna say in standardization. Everyone was hoping that standardization would come at a federal level with just one currency, just like you have a physical greenback. Everyone really wanted to see a like a digital version of the greenback, something that you can transmit it over different networks. Doesn't matter if it's
Mhm.
Visa, Mastercard, or some Walmart makes their own, but you would transmit the currency, and then the currency can always be digitally verified as being, this file is the currency. Don't worry, it's not a scam or it's not counterfeit. So the answer to your question is that unfortunately we don't have that standardization right now, but you are going to see limited stable coins start to come out. Maybe you'll have something like what we have with credit cards with Visa MasterCard network. Instead, you'll have like a Visa stablecoin network or Visa stablecoin or a MasterCard stablecoin. And those stable coins, they don't have to go over their network. That would be the big thing about it. You could use that stable coin over whatever network you're using, but it's a currency. Think of it like when I think all this talk that we've done tonight, Nick, and I just haven't used a very simple explain it like I'm five definition of a token.
Yeah.
Well, a token's like a seashell. Think of it like an
Yes.
electronic seashell. I want to go ahead and instead of saying, okay, I'm going to pay you in a dollar bill is a token. Okay, it's worth what? Back in the day, it was pegged to the gold standard. So $1 was worth whatever amount of gold. The pound made it a lot easier. £1 originally was worth £1 what, sterling or silver. So yeah, I can't remember, but yeah, it's just a pound of a certain. The pound was a token. So a token, when we talk about it electronically, instead of me passing you a greenback, now it's going to be a stable coin token. What's the token? Okay, the token is a stable coin. It's a blockchain, contains, whatever information to verify that, yes, it's worth $1. One physical dollar is one stable coin, or whatever your currency is equal to one electronic stable coin. So now with stablecoin, instead of transmitting credit card numbers or whatever like that, you're literally transmitting, okay, a digital version of a coin or a digital version of a greenback. And unlike original cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything, the value doesn't change. It's always worth whatever the fiat currency is worth. So you take away that commodity aspect of Bitcoin or that commodity aspect of Ethereum, and you get back to what a currency should be, which is transmitting financial instruments. Okay, it's an exchange of a financial instrument. And you can do that over any type of network.
All right. Let's see. Caleb had a question. What is the view on potential impact of stablecoins and subscription billing models and ARR reporting, especially as digital payments evolve?
Oh, if I, excuse my French, if I commented on that, I would be bullshitting. So I would
No,
say go ahead and
Corey,
actually.
Caleb, I think that question you should ask the folks from Federal Reserve. I think save that question for
Yes,
them because
I
they are
would.
the experts on this. We are not as much. Caleb, you were saying something?
I said, okay, I will.
Yeah, I
I
think
will
that's more
say
for them.
this. As far as regulation and such, I wouldn't comment on right now simply because of such amount of flux that's going on. Even today, when you look at AI legislation, that was removed from the latest omnibus bill. So you can't really go ahead and comment really on where the federal government's going to go with regulation, especially around stable coins. I will say this. I've said it in other panels. I've said it, I think, in this class, but look towards the states such as New York and their financial regulators because they are going to be pushing a lot more compliance regulations regarding how cryptocurrency and stablecoins will be used. And I think that even the federal government will start pushing it a lot more because they see the value in this industry being just safe and be able to transmit these currencies online.
But guys, I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there, right? Remember, whatever you do with stable coins and it's a central body and it's tied, everything is trackable. Okay, so remember, everything is going to be it's not like cash.
Right.
They will be able to track every single move that you make. This is why a lot of people will oppose against CBDC, which is central bank digital currency, right? Just like how China did it, India's working on it, a bunch of countries are doing it. But main thing with our country is we don't want the government to know what you're doing and what you're purchasing. This way, it just opens up to see how they're going to track you from every aspect. It's not like they're not tracking you now, but just that gives you give them even more ammo to be able to see what's happening behind the scenes, right? Remember, it's all about trackability. Danny said one question here. What are the current gaps and challenges regarding tokenizations, and when do you see more widespread adoption of it globally?
Well, tokenization in the traditional sense, like, or the sense I was talking about in credit card networks, the biggest thing was standardization. When you look at the late 2000s, there was so many different tokenizations out there, solutions. I remember WorldPay had its own solution.
Yes.
There's solutions from each credit card acquiring network. And then on the other end, you had both Visa, MasterCard, Discover had their own tokenization. The debit networks wanted to do their own tokenization, and all these different services didn't play with each other. So, for instance, network tokenizations are a totally different animal from a closed loop system like WorldPay would have, where you can just tokenize within the WorldPay system, but you can't send that token to anybody else. So it's it was that standardization that was the biggest issue. It's improved quite a lot over the last decade without having a federal system or anything. That's the advantage of a private system, is that it grew with it. Visa is an international system, so
Mhm.
their tokens now are internationally. You can use a token, Visa token, in Asia Pacific or in SAMEA, so the Middle East, Africa,
Mhm.
and not be worried about, okay, will it work? So that was the biggest thing, was standardization.
Now,
Now,
Corey,
I was going to say, talking about stable currencies and mentioning those as tokens. The biggest thing was the regulations around them because they were so
Mhm.
new.
Yeah.
This isn't a question that's just recent. I mean, we've been thinking about regulation of cryptocurrency since its infancy, but really since the 2014, I would say. And there's been periods of comment to different organizations in the US and the EU. Um, a lot of, should we treat it like a commodity? That was the biggest
Mhm.
thing with cryptocurrency. Or is it actual currency? Is it something that can be used as a currency? Because for a long time, because of transaction throughput and also because of the fluctuations, no, you can't treat that as a currency. That's why stablecoin is so different. It's pegged, and you don't have to worry about fluctuations. And
Mhm.
the throughput on the stablecoin networks, at least for a planned capacity, is way higher because you're
Mhm.
not trying to go ahead and validate a currency every single time you transmit it. So that was the big advantage with the stablecoin.
Yeah. So maybe you know what, Corey, I'll bring Luther is in big into stablecoin now. He's a CEO of a stablecoin
Just
company.
a little bit, yeah.
Yes, a startup, but he works for Algorand. That is a cryptocurrency. Uh, they have the cryptocurrency. So maybe we can get him on a call when we have a call in a couple of weeks. Yeah, get him
Hmm.
to join us and have a conversation about it. Right.
It'd be great.
And yeah, I think you guys will get very more information from somebody who's involved in it. Right. He's probably driving the whole stablecoin initiative right now, and perhaps he can help us too on that. And even you got Chris, so I mean, folks from Federal Reserve, they know pretty much everything of what's happening. But
Exactly.
on a perspective from a merchant side, I think Luther might be able to give us some more ideas on the stablecoin. All right, any other questions, folks?
I have a question for you, Dr. Nick. You said that you do not have a credit card. So what do you do when it comes to like, when you go to a store and they say we only accept credit cards?
Well, most places do accept debit cards, right? I have a debit card. I'm not saying it. I have a debit card, yes, but I don't use credit card. And cash, cash is you have to accept cash, right? That's a legal tender, so they
Like,
cannot turn you down
um,
for cash.
I like one time, because I also only have debit cards as well, but in
Mhm.
certain at certain times, like if I want to rent out a car or something like that,
Mhm.
they would say, we only accept credit card.
No, they will put a hold about certain amount of money, right? Last time when I
Right.
rented a vehicle, so they held about $1,000. That's fine. I mean, it's okay with by me. So they just had to keep aside $1,000, but they would have to accept it. That's standard in a sense. Okay,
Oh, okay.
I never saw
That
any
actually
problems with
is a
that though.
That's actually a very
Go.
good question, though, Taji, because that goes back to the credit card networks and the different like versions they have. Um, for debit cards, they actually process, I believe it's like 80% of their traffic on their networks is debit cards compared to credit cards.
Yes.
For like Visa, for instance, Visa and Mastercard, their debit card solutions are way more popular. They're also the solutions they use for like prepaid cards. So Green
Mhm.
Dot, but also just your normal prepaid cards where if I go into a store and get a Visa vanilla card or like a MasterCard gift card, it still uses their regular credit networks. So they call those signature debit, and you're still using the regular credit network, but
Mhm.
nonetheless, you can go ahead and use your card, for instance, at a rental car location,
Yeah.
but they
And you
will
said
put that hold on your card
yes. They
on
will
a
put a hold.
right on a line of credit card. It makes no difference. You put a hold on it. Well, you settle up at the end of the month anyway, and it's just a hold on your credit limit. But on a
Mhm.
debit card, no, that's a hold for usually like, 3 to 5 business days. And it's for whatever they do the hold for. So let's say they say, you're charged $300 with tax, but in case of any type of accident or anything, we're going to hold $500 on your card until the
Exactly.
rental is complete. So that's the real inconvenience of using your debit card at like a rental store, a rental location, or a hotel, or gas stations. Actually, used to just authorize on debit cards the entire amount like ahead of time.
Yeah.
So it would hold like $75. They've gotten a lot better with they call those real time clearing transactions now. But yeah, that's the inconvenience of using debit cards is
Absolutely.
they will
But
hold that amount.
exactly, Taji. I went and got it a an enterprise rental. They held about $600, I think. Even hotels, they would do the same thing. When I went for a conference to Vegas last year, I think the amount for the whole thing was 700 plus. So they held the 700 plus in my account, and then they released whatever the balance is. So that's yeah the downside about debit, but I never had any problems. Right? I didn't want to break down and get a credit card. There's no reason to.
Okay,
But I
that makes
think,
sense then.
yeah, but you need to
How
ask around though. You need to go for the big guys. If you go for the little moms and pops, yeah, obviously they will deny you though.
And
But if
they've
you go
got a
for the
lot better since debit cards, like up until the uh, or mid 90s, I would say.
Mhm,
Visa was mainly a credit card network.
mhm.
MasterCard was mainly a credit card network. And that's the reason why a lot of times you could not use your debit card everywhere because it was these small regional networks. Once they started to
Yes.
sell their own debit card products that link to, issuing banks that use Visa, then suddenly you could use your debit card at, rental locations and such like that. But that's when the issues with the credit card hold on a debit account came up.
Mhm. But class, one thing I have to say, I have bad credit. Not bad credit. I have no credit. So that's a problem, right? If I'm gonna go buy a house or something else, nope, no credit. But at this point in my life, I really don't need more credit, so I'm good. In your case, yeah, you got to build up on it. So use it wisely, I think. A
And I
charge
think
card would, yeah, a charge card would be highly recommended. You charge it and you pay in the month. So that's my advice to you all. Don't get a credit card, get a charge card. So,
And I wouldn't recommend any actual influencer, doesn't matter the network like YouTube or TikTok or anything like that. But I will say that there's plenty of information out there now where you can get a credit card account or a line of credit and use it to your advantage to build up your both your credit score and your
exactly.
portfolio. So
Whatever.
it can be done smart, but you have to do it in a planned manner. It's not a matter
Yeah.
of just taking whatever offer you get in the mail.
So whatever you charge folks, if you can pay another month, it's the best thing to do. If you start paying a minimum 20, $30, you are screwed.
Right.
You'll be paying for 20 years. Yeah. So remember that advice, right? That's the
Okay, I
only thing
have
I should.
one last question.
Yes.
So in our company, we have like a token. It's called a soft token to
Hmm.
access the bank. Is that like the same thing as token, the same concept? Like,
It is. It
Hmm.
just works in conjunction with other cryptographic and cybersecurity principles.
Yes.
So it's there is a hard token and a soft token. A hard token is literally you hold an object in your hand. Could be just a physical object with an LCD or something else. But it goes ahead and has a little bit of an algorithm that changes a number or a symbol at a certain amount of time, like every minute,
Hmm.
and you provide that either electronically or over the phone. You say, what's on the screen right now? Apple. Okay, great. A soft token, on the other hand, is a soft piece of software. It can be installed on your phone as an app or on your desktop as an app, or you might go to a website and for instance, Google makes use of soft tokens where they say, okay, look on your telephone, on your Android phone. Do you see this number? Yes. Okay, great. Or you might have an authentication app. That a lot more. You see a lot more of those where like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator app or RSA also has their soft token app in addition to
Hmm.
their hard tokens they distribute. And you go ahead and take a 6-digit code usually or a 3-digit code or whatever, and you go ahead and transmit that electronically, and that's called two-factor authentication.
Hmm.
So you go ahead and in addition to one factor, which is password maybe, you also go ahead and have the second factor of a token being passed and saying, yes, I'm this person. So that's what your soft token is.
Hmm. All right.
thank you.
You're welcome. So any other questions, folks? Corey, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate you. All right.
I
The class
really
appreciates you.
appreciate going ahead and being able to go ahead and have these conversations. If anybody
Yes.
has any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or via Professor Sapaya.
Okay. Thank you, class. Stay safe. Happy 4th to y'all, all of y'all. Hope y'all have a wonderful time with the family. Right. And I will talk to y'all next week. I think we have something going on next week, I'm sure. And this is fun. I enjoy it. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Take care. Thanks, Corey.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Bye.